Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Now, given the current events over the past few weeks and months with the tragic situation of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, and unfortunately the list can go on, and subsequent protests and riots over the systemic racial injustices, and the ongoing struggles with coronavirus and the quarantine, and coupling that with the economic situation and increasing financial hardships that people are facing due to the rising level of unemployment and businesses struggling, there are a lot of people that have high levels of worry and angst, and they're looking for guidance and leadership. And we know that the best guidance and leadership that we can get is through the example of the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I wanted to share a specific dua that he taught us that I believe can help us in all times, but definitely during these unprecedented times. And the dua that he taught us was, Allahumma inni a'udu bika min al-hammi wal-hazni wal-ajzi wal-kasli wal-bukhli wal-jubni wa-daladeni wa-ghalabat al-rijal. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from anxiety and grief, from inability and laziness, from stinginess and cowardice, from the burden of debt and oppression of men. Now this is a short dua, but it encompasses many areas, so I want to just briefly touch on each of them in this short reminder. So the first of which, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, is al-hammi, which is anxiety. And this is the type of anxiety that is related to the worry and stress about the events which may happen in the future. And there's a lot of uncertainty nowadays due to there's a lot of anxiety today due to uncertainty and not knowing what tomorrow will bring. But it's important to remember that it may be that Allah SWT puts us in a difficult situation temporarily so that we can grow, and in the end these difficulties are better for us in the long run. Also know that when we need assistance, that it's always Allah who is there to help us. So we control what we can control and leave the rest to Allah SWT. And the opposite of anxiety is hope and optimism. Despite the hardships and the situation and the uncertainty that we see, we should still always maintain a healthy level of optimism, because we know that Allah SWT is in control of the situation and that He is aware. And through our du'as, inshallah, the situation can change for the better in the future. The next thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned was hazni, which is grief and sorrow, and this is different from alhammi because this relates to something that has already occurred in the past. So the loss of something previously, and this grief can be due to many reasons, whether you lost something or someone, or possibly you didn't do something that you were supposed to do and you had the ability to do. Now you have this feelings of regret. And we know that there's a common saying that you'll either have one of two pains, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So we have to endure at times this level of discipline so that we can prevent having regrets. But there are many times where we don't have control over some things that happen, whether it's the loss of a loved one or loss of something that is a possession that is dear to you. And inshallah, making this dua will prevent this loss from occurring potentially, and prevent this type of grief that may occur as well. The next thing that is mentioned in the dua is this concept of al-ajzi, which is inability, and this can be the inability or lacking certain skills or tools, or not having other blessings such as maybe like your eyes or your hands, your ability to speak, all these blessings that Allah SWT has given us. Or maybe lacking the ability to make a difference. Maybe you're stuck in a system that doesn't allow you to get ahead or advance based off factors you can't control, whether it's your race, your ethnicity, your family social class, or other factors. And the opposite of this ajzi, which this dua is helping us to achieve, is having the ability and the skills to advance, whether that's in your job, your profession, or the ability to make a difference on social issues. Because you know the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever amongst you sees an evil action, then let him change it with his hands, and if he cannot, then with his tongue, and if he cannot, then with his heart, and that is the weakness of faith. So the ability to change something with your hands or your tongue, that requires ability. That requires the ability to do that. And that's, inshallah, what this dua will help us with. Next is mentioned this concept of al-kasli, which is laziness. And seeking refuge from laziness is very important, because there's nothing good that comes from being a lazy person. And if you are lazy, then you're most likely to simply accept the status quo of yourself or of society. And laziness can lead to a person taking shortcuts, or lying or cheating, and not fulfilling the rights of others. And what is the opposite of laziness? It is hard work. It is this concept of istiqamah, of being steadfast. And we know that istiqamah, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he mentioned that it is trying to be steadfast in the issues which are obligated towards us, and to leave that which is prohibited. And also you can say that the opposite of kasal, this laziness, is being patient and persistence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and seek help with patience and perseverance. It is this willingness to strive and push oneself when you are met with resistance or difficulty, and you don't give up easily. And this concept has been researched a lot, especially with contemporary social scientists, and they have done studies to find out what are the most deterministic factors in predicting a person's future success in a worldly sense. And many of them have found that it's not necessarily something like your IQ, but rather this pattern of grit and consistently focused hard work over long periods of time, which is the exact opposite of laziness. And for example, they test this in children by giving them tests that they know they can't pass, but they're not testing whether they can pass the test. They want to see at what point does the child give up. And the longer they persist, the higher prediction of future success, worldly success, that they're going to have. And this is something that we should definitely seek for ourselves. And the next concept, which is mentioned in this beautiful dua, is as this concept of bukhli, which is stinginess. And we should always seek refuge from being a stingy person. And this is not giving to others or hoarding for yourself. You're fearing loss, and that's why you don't give. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah that Shaitan threatens you with poverty and urges you to immorality, but Allah promises you forgiveness from Him and bounty. And stinginess cannot just be not giving yourself, but also not encouraging others to give as well. Because in Surah Al-Ma'un, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يُحُدُّ عَلَىٰ طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, and they do not encourage the feeding of the poor. So it's not just for yourself, but also encouraging others as well. And what is the opposite of stinginess? It is being generous with your time, being generous with your wealth, being generous with your skills, donating to those who are needy, or other social causes that need change. And this is just something that we should try to strive for, which is very much needed nowadays. Next, the concept of jubni, or cowardice, and being seeking refuge from being a coward. Now, coward is someone who doesn't stand up stand up against what is wrong, or stand up for what is right, even though you know what in front of you is wrong, or you know what is right, but you don't stand up for it. And a coward is someone who has too much fear of the creation, and this is a direct result of not having the proper khashya Allah, the fear of Allah. So if there's, for example, blatant acts of racism happening, but you're afraid of the what people would say about you if you didn't speak up, this is a concept of, or this is related to being a coward. And a heart that does not fear Allah in private will ultimately fear people in public. However, a heart that does fear Allah in private will not have any room in it to fear the people when you are in public and you need that strength. And the opposite of this cowardice is bravery, doing the hard right versus the easy wrong. being brave and encouraging justice despite the fact that there may be repercussions. Being brave knowing that you may stand alone. It's much easier always to be part of a crowd and follow. But being brave and doing what is right even though you're alone, is a part and parcel of our deen. And there are many examples of this. For example, the early Sahaba, when they embraced Islam prior to the Hijrah, they faced consequences for encouraging the right and accepting Tawheed. But we know that they eventually had a higher station than those who accepted Islam later on when the numbers were much greater. Next, the dua talks about this concept of the burden of debt. And we know that with this coronavirus pandemic, it has led to many people losing their source of income, unfortunately. There's over 40 million people who are unemployed in the US alone right now. Bills are piling up, and there's massive burden on people's shoulders. And we should understand also the context in which the Prophet ﷺ taught us this dua. For example, there was an incident in which the Prophet ﷺ, he saw a Sahaba, Abu Umayma, sitting in the masjid when it wasn't time for prayer. And so the Prophet ﷺ asked him why he was there at that time. And Abu Umayma replied and said that he was consumed by anxiety and debt, so it led him to the masjid to seek some sort of help. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he instructed him and he taught him this dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazni wal-ajzi wal-kasi wal-bukhli wal-jubni wa zilladayni wa ghalabat ar-rijal. And Abu Umayma later stated that after consistently making this dua, that it led him to remove or ease his anxiety and to have his debts eventually settled. So inshallah, for whoever is having financial difficulty and hardship, definitely we should remember this dua. Inshallah, it will help you just like it helped Abu Umayma. And then lastly, this dua, it talks about this ghalabat al-rijal, this concept of oppression or being overpowered by men. And we know that in the Hadith Qudsi, Allah SWT says, "O my servants, I have prohibited oppression on myself, therefore do not commit oppression." And it is narrated by Ibn Umar that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Oppression will turn into darkness on the day of resurrection." And unfortunately, there is obvious widespread oppression going on here in the US and globally. There is rampant and systemic racial oppression towards our African American brothers and sisters here in America. And obviously there's religious and ethnic oppression towards Muslims around the world. But we should also at the same time never forget that Muslims themselves can and have been sources of oppression as well. There's Anas early on narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that you should help your brother whether he is an oppressor or is oppressed. And a man inquired and he asked, "O Messenger of Allah, I help him when he is oppressed, but how can I help him when he is an oppressor?" And he ﷺ responded and said, you can help him by preventing him from committing oppression, and that will be your help to him. So we should help those who are oppressed in whatever form of oppression they are enduring, but also ourselves, we should not become an oppressor or a source of oppression or support those directly or indirectly who are causing oppression. And we should fear Allah, because we know that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that we should beware of the supplication of the oppressed, even if he is an unbeliever, for there is no barrier between that prayer and Allah. For example, we may claim that I've never hurt anyone, but it's possible that we have racism in our hearts or hatred towards people, and that may unknowingly lead to us supporting people or systems that are directly causing oppression. So inshallah, this dua will help protect us from oppression and also from being a source of oppression towards others as well, whether it is explicit or implicit. So I encourage myself and all of you to include this beautiful dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us as a regular part of our life, and to also reflect on the current situation and pray for solutions for oppression, such as the racial injustices that are occurring to black people throughout our society, to pray to alleviate financial hardships that so many people are facing due to the widespread economic situation, and to pray that the uncertainty and massive stress and anxiety that has come about due to the coronavirus pandemic is resolved soon, and that we become better people as a result of this test. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, salamun wa mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.